Alright, let's do this video. Hopefully nice and quick, but you know, this isn't usually the long part. I'm the Villainess, so I'm taming the final boss, which I never did finish this. Regions A and B, that's good to know. Trying to take a closer look, because that's an English dub. Different underneath the slipcover, that's always nice. I do appreciate how this looks more like a traditional thing, and that's just kind of a really nice image. How far in this did I get? I guess Crunchy Munchy knows, but well, let's just get on the inside. That's a little bit upside down. No wonder I can't process the image or the name. And we got a nice inside. Very nice. Next up, we have A Couple of Cuckoos. This should be part 2. Yeah, that's season 2. Which, you see, I see regions A and B down there, and I see audio, English and Japanese. Wait, did I see Japanese? I saw French and German and Japanese. I don't remember if I saw French and German on the other one. Very nice that it's different underneath the slipcover. Definitely huge props to the companies. I feel like it's a simple presentation, but I feel effective. But, you know, I suppose their sales department would know better. 3, 4. So part 1 probably had 1 and 2. We've got some swimsuits underneath there. Okay. And then last but not least, let's see, Endo and Kobayashi live, the latest on Tsundere Villaness Liselotte, which it was an amusing enough premise, but I guess I didn't quite find anything that kept me feeling like I had to keep watching it. I'm trying to remember exactly. I might have given it 2 to 3 episodes, but if it was only 2 episodes, then I didn't give it the full 3 episode deal. This one's region A only, with only Japanese with English subtitles. You know, that's fair. I appreciate if you know, if they bring out the bare minimum. I'm still a fan of the fact that these come out on physical medium. Unfortunately, I don't watch them enough to know if the hardware is all good, but yeah. Well, here's this week's anime Blu-ray collection update. Alright, it's been a bit of a crazy week, so I think I have caught up on less, or rather I've fallen behind on more stuff. Not even necessarily stuff that's like, oh, you fell behind on that, but it's just, it's been a bit of a week with, you know, I mentioned the company holiday party and needing to do a lot of planning and devote a lot of energy to that, and just not feeling very good after that. Although I think some of that may have just been like partial recovery from that, and then weird digestive issues. Because like today I've felt really weird. I don't know. All of that said, you know, I haven't watched as much stuff as I would have wanted to. My energy levels are such that I'd kind of rather be zombieing out playing Pokemon. But I guess before all that, I was just thinking that, you know, I think somebody commented on this, and I've of course thought of it, and I called it an anime Blu-ray collection update, and I'm still calling the title an anime DVD collection update, even though, you know, it's expanded beyond DVDs, and it's always included other things, especially, you know, well, DVD and Blu-rays, of course, but there were some VHSs, maybe Laserdisc once, just things that have been there over the years. And I think, next year, I should update the title. I'm not going to call it my anime Blu-ray collection update. You know, DVD, Blu-ray, that all makes sense. But I think I want to keep it generic. Because I guess I always wanted to call it something like an anime home video collection update. But DVD collection update just kind of felt neater. And Blu-ray collection update is okay, but I want it to be a little more inclusive. So I think I might start calling it my physical anime collection update. Because that's really what I'm going for here, is me purchasing stuff on physical medium. And that kind of covers it across the board and describes my collection much better. So yeah, I think I might do that. And I figured just starting next year, you know, I'm going to have to update my starter video that I start all these with to indicate 2024. Because I filled that out, you know, I filled that out when at the very beginning of the year, so that, you know, all I have to modify is the actual start date. And that's why you'll occasionally see the video that says January 2023. It's because I sometimes forget to update that, which hopefully I won't this time. But the point is, you know, that's what I'm thinking. If y'all have any other opinions, feel free to, you know, voice them. You know, I'm likely to just do it that way because, you know, that's just what, you know, it's my stream, and that's, I say it's my stream, it's my channel, my videos, whatever. But, you know, other shorthand things, like home video might have the same number of syllables as physical, but physical feels more compact because it's one word. And also physical being in the same place as DVD or Blu-ray doesn't quite work. DVD being 3 syllables, Blu-ray being 2. But, you know, physical anime collection update. That sounds sounds like what I want to do. As for the stuff I've watched, so top of my list is always the stuff I watched with my Friday friend. We've got Goblin Slayer, Season 2, Episode 9, the dubbed version of it. And, you know, it was fine. And like I said, I kind of like the start of this presumably final arc of Goblin Slayer Season 2. And, yeah, I think I liked how it started a bit because it felt like it wasn't just... I don't know. Well, I guess the previous ones did something. It felt like the things they did weren't too different. But they've been necessary, I feel like, building up to this one. And with the latest happenings in Season 2, that would be Episode 11, I believe, on my own time. Yeah, right down there, I see. So far, it's okay. Whether or not it's a good ending to this season, I guess I need to see that last episode. But there's a theming kind of going on here that I feel like it works out through it, because a lot of the season has a lot more to do with Priest Girl. And some of them have definitely been more explicitly stories about her, but this last one may still be highly character building for her in a good way. So, you know, I'm interested to see what episode 12 will bring. Rising of the Shield Hero, the dub, Season 3, Episodes 6 through 9. I didn't care so much about this stuff. And rewatching it, I guess it was the same. It's okay, and there's some important development stuff that happens in it, and there's interesting things to speculate on it outside of this, but it feels a little too strongly about characters that, while they're cool, are either distracting in the case of one of them, or in the other one, it's like, okay, this feels like it should be a much bigger idea than what it is, but what they just said is nonsensical. And I complained about this when I watched the episode as well, where you had the one character saying they were going to be our main character's shield. It's just like, well, then why does it not feel like you're being their shield? If you say, I'm their hammer, or I'm their wall breaker, or what is the name of that thing that they use to break down doors at castle gates? I'm blanking on it. You know, if it was something like that, it would make sense. Because if you compare it to, like, Raftalia, you know, Raftalia being our main character's sword, it's like, yes, she fucking feels like it. Except, of course, that they've been neglecting her these past couple of episodes because they keep developing all these other characters. Some of them seem to be kind of important and necessary for some of the meta stuff. Not as distracting as Season 2. Again, Season 3 is a lot better than Season 2. But it's still, like, it didn't feel like they were being very shieldy. So it feels like she's just saying it, and they devoted a whole lot of animation budget to that scene, so it's definitely supposed to feel very important and impressive, and it's not bad per se, but just thematically it feels off. And I think the main thing with season 3 is it's just there's still world building, and while it does involve our main characters quite a bit more, I feel like, than season 2, it doesn't feel like it's as much bullshit to them, but at the same time it feels like it's not this thing where it was our main character and the people immediately close to them and their adventure, and it just feels like it's spread out a bit. But, it's whatever. And then for episode... where is it? Episode 11, season... No, that's Goblin Slayer. Oh, but it's same thing for Rising of the Shield, or season 3, episode 11. What all happened in that? Lots of potential things to comment on. Thoughts, things like that. But, yeah. I'm trying to remember exactly how it ended. I'm looking forward to the next episode, I suppose. But more curiosity and not like, this is the most awesome thing ever. But it's fine. I feel like even though this episode is mostly dealing with character exploration of people other than our main character, it's with the people that it needed to be doing it, because they kind of established from the very beginning that the other cardinal heroes needed there would need to be something with them, unless the show was going to go a direction where it was just like, oh, they're a bunch of nobodies and nothing good ever happens to them and we can just forget about them and everything's about the shield hero, which would be fine. But we've since the first season we've received information that kind of suggests that's not the case, and we've seen things that suggest that even though things hadn't been the case up to this point, that it couldn't keep going that way much longer. So yeah, where it's okay. Let me see, I didn't watch the latest episode of Helk, and I think tomorrow the final episode of the series comes out, so it's probably a good idea to watch all of it and just finish it. So that's my goal, is to watch it all in one blob now that I'm on PTO, but you can take that with a grain of salt. Same with the Saint's Magic Power. I didn't watch season 2 episode 10. No, sorry, episode 11, and I guess it's because where episode 10 ended, I wasn't quite sure if there was anything story related that excited me a whole lot, and then the title for the episode kind of sounded like, oh yeah, I guess it's just only the shoujo parts, and maybe it's the shoujo involving the story, but I guess we'd have to see. And it's not bad, but it didn't excite me, not with me being so low energy and all that stuff. Eminence and Shadow season 2 episode 31, fun stuff. Especially with Sid, he set up some interesting stuff there. Definitely curious to see what the final episode, I think the next episode is the final episode of the season, is going to do, because it's been a pretty fun setup so far. So I'd call the previous episode 31 just a fun episode. Maybe not mind-blowing per se, but fun. My Daughter Left the Nest and Returned an S-Rank Adventure, episode 12. I mostly enjoyed this episode. I'm trying to think if there was anything about it that wowed me. But for the most part, the fact that it's explored that thing that I've kind of found one of the more interesting things, and that's how our main character, despite retiring as a hero at a not very impressive rank, is maybe better than he thinks he is, just from, years of accumulating wisdom to a certain degree. And this episode, I think, explores that quite a bit more. It's never giving us a complete, full answer, but it's definitely telling us that, the fact that she's been boasting about him is not completely full of hot air. There's a part of it where it's just like, it sort of feels like it, just because, it feels like she has too high of an opinion of him, but, flows well. And I'm definitely curious to see if some of the interactions she's having in her place result in things. But otherwise, you know, fucking hating the nobles that she's visiting. I mean, not that we've seen a whole lot of them. I'm trying to think if there's any of them that shouldn't be skinned alive or something like that. I mean, maybe. I'm not thinking about it too hard, but I just remember being really miffed, especially by that main guy. I feel like he's a complete hypocrite. And she wasn't too bad. Maybe just a little annoying, but I don't know. They definitely come off as selfish and in their own world, and I'm pretty sure they're supposed to. So, interested to see. Dr. Stone, Season 3, Episode 21. I think the previous episode I mentioned felt a little fast, and it was understandable why it was so, because there was certain build-up and interactions that we wanted to see happen, and it wanted to get to some of that important stuff first. And in this one, I feel like it slowed down to give us better building of all the stuff, the plans, where it's going to go, what it's planning to do, and for the most part, I'd call it all pretty good. So, most likely this season's going to end, and then I guess we're going to be left hungry for what Season 4 is going to bring. Let me see, I already mentioned those. I skipped the next episode of Kingdoms of Ruin, episode 11. Not because I needed to, but the episode 10, I had my gripes about it. And I'm very gripey, so it makes sense. But, I don't know. I guess I didn't find the motivation to watch episode 11, and that was all. I'm not giving up on it per se. Freerun, Beyond Journeys, and episode 15. You know, Freerun's always just been a nice, enjoyable show, and I've definitely seen some YouTube videos that just kind of explain some things that it does really well. I'm like, yeah, those did work out. And so while it's possible I've had things to complain about, I don't think I've complained too hard, just more like maybe I haven't seemed as enthusiastic about some of the stuff I've seen, and I think that's because Freerun's a bit of a slow burner. That's the way somebody else described it. I'm like, oh yeah, the big problem I had with that video is they tried to describe One Piece as not a slow burner. I'm like, okay, that's just a way of admitting that you haven't watched One Piece. It does have some actions that happen that are really fast, but Jesus Christ, does it take forever for a One Piece story to reach its climax. You know, if Freerun is a slow burner, then One Piece is something else. And the funny thing is, One Piece does that without being too filler. It just kind of does something, it's not exactly filler, but it's something very similar where it's a lot of, I don't know, excess world building. Like, it's doing more for the individual events and characters than it needs to, per se. And it does slow it down a bit more than maybe it needs to, but it can be really hard to tell. And sometimes that's what makes One Piece magical, is you can't know, and then it really does all come together. But to call One Piece something other than a slow burn is, it feels wrong, but it's definitely not the same sort of thing as what Freerun's doing, where Freerun, you know, the interactions, the dialogue and stuff builds up to the stuff quite a bit more than maybe the posturing, and maybe that's what they really mean, but I don't think you can call One Piece anything other than a different kind of slow burn. Now, you talk about something like Naruto, and yeah, sure, I mean, it's got a little bit of that, but something like Naruto or Bleach or something, they tend to go a lot slower, also because they have a bunch of filler that has absolutely nothing to do with the story that's currently being told. But yeah, okay, I say all that, and then this Freerun episode was another neat one. Okay, yeah, because it's really building up the interaction with that character, so we learn more about all that stuff, and, you know, it's tying into the overall theme of it quite a bit more, because, well, I don't know how much I really want to say, but it really just, it's thematically, it feels quite great, quite on point. Ragnar Crimson, episode 12, which I wonder if, I think that's the last episode of this core, and I do think it's going to continue, but it sounds like it's going to continue after the holiday season, so like the first week of January maybe. So I wouldn't say where it left off is a good place. It feels like it's in the middle of something. So this is definitely not really a first core, but I guess it technically is. And I guess it was okay stuff. Fun stuff. But if there's any problem, it's that these last handful of episodes have felt like they've slowed down. And part of that slowdown, unfortunately, is us seeing the superior dragons do their stuff. And, you know, it's hard to be respectful of them because they're not as complicated. They are just hypocrites. But I digress. Vexations of a Shut-In Vampire Princess, Episode 10. Fun stuff, I suppose. You know, maybe not as awesome and exhilarating as some of the other series, but, you know, for the most part, I do appreciate that it's moving forward with something. It's not feeling like it's doing the same thing over and over again. If there's anything, it's kind of funny that it's set up another character that's kind of going through the same thing as our main character, with the major difference being that they are actually weak, pretending to be strong, whereas our main character thinks they're weak, trying to pretend to be strong, and they're behaving goofily because of that, but ultimately they're not as weak as they themselves think they are. And it's definitely interesting to see what it's planning to do with that, and it's keeping it just in check enough for it to not be boring, to kind of want to see what's going to happen next. So, entertaining stuff. Faraway Paladin, Season 2, Episode 11. Really liking this. The interaction between our main character especially and kind of the lore of the world in general is very strong in this episode and feeling very great. And I especially appreciated that it's like, wait, they're spending a lot of time talking. Why isn't the dragon just like killing him right now? But that's because the dragon, it's not pride that he has. It's what would you call it? I don't know. It's more. I'm trying to think of the right word, and I'm thinking of the wrong words. I wouldn't call it a kink, but it's definitely something sort of like that. A bit of a perversion of his, where he really wants people to give their all and be completely ready to fight him before he just kicks their ass and shows them how useless it is. Again, it's the complete opposite of the Hobbit trilogy Smog stuff, where it's just like, oh, now he's just big roar monster. No, Valkyrka is an intelligent creature with his own motivations that's showing a lot more well-builtness, I would say. And so overall, fun episode. Definitely looking forward to seeing how it ends. I haven't watched the next episode of Butareba yet. I Shall Survive Using Potions, episode 11. What all happened in this? Okay, that it played with something that's definitely been present in the show, but not really mentioned a whole lot, and kind of hinted at the previous episode, but played with really strongly in this episode. And it's, again, the show continuing to do completely new stuff. Pretty good for watching on a week-to-week basis. Might be kind of a little more annoying if you binge watch it, I think. But overall, you know, an entertaining episode, I would say. Did it end on anything that I would consider super noteworthy? I'm not sure. Oh well, let's see. Tier Moon Empire, episode 11. This is definitely one of those things where it's just like, you lose respect for some of the characters because they're like, no, I know what I must do because I'm a fucking NPC with no thoughts and I don't talk to people. And it's like, and apparently he was this way probably in our character's original timeline as well, based on the stuff. It's just like, you look like a complete rotten piece of shit. It's like, this is something where it's like, it feels like if people just simply talked, they would be like, wait a second, something fishy is going on here. But no, this anime required some of its standard coincidences to happen, which for the most part has been fine and entertaining. But for here, it's definitely done a good job of just giving me a lower opinion of certain characters. But I am curious to see if it's leading into an ending and what that ending is, because it feels like it's coming to a bit of a conclusion. Have not watched the latest episode of Spy Family. I suppose mostly because it didn't look like it was a continuation from the previous stuff, so not as important. But I didn't look too closely, so I could easily be wrong about that. It was just on the list of stuff, and I just didn't get around to it, really. Let me scroll this down, and let me plug my laptop back in, because I accidentally just unplugged it with my foot. A Returner's Magic should be special, episode 11. Okay stuff. It's had some action. I think the main qualm I have with it is I do have questions on why the action had to happen in the order that it did, I suppose. But, yeah, fine, I suppose. Berserk of Gluttony, episode 12. Also action-y stuff, good setup stuff. The characters who've done annoying things that have pissed me off about them, none of them were doing that, so that's all good and fine. And some of the other information revealed is interesting. It wrapped up, I would say, this season. It feels like a season finale and not a core finale, but it definitely set itself up, so I would assume that there's more to come. Let's see, I haven't caught up on Shangri-La Frontier or 100 Girlfriends or Dark Gathering. I did watch the latest 2 episodes of A Certain Dude's Vermo Life. Episode 11, I mentioned something about the name just didn't tickle me. I didn't feel like watching it then. But when I watched it after recording the video, and maybe the next day, I don't remember, it was more fun. Episode 11 I thought was more fun than I thought it would be. Episode 12, maybe not as fun, but episode 11 was setting up into it, and I guess it's supposed to be a bit of a thing. My main problem with it being that I guess the idea is our main character finally gets angry about something, and while that's fine, I feel like what he should have done is tell them, I can just disappear, but then I guess it wouldn't have made sense for the final confrontation they wanted him to have, which I thought was a bit of a mixed bag. Main problem being that it didn't feel like most of that battle being won came from our main character doing things clever and interesting. It felt like instead it was more, all your clever and interesting stuff meant nothing, but the special things you got from just being the character chosen by the show to a certain extent is there. And the main problem with all of that is, it ends with the way it's just like, okay, yeah, it's cool that this is resolved, but none of that resolution feels like it had anything to do with the show having actual meaning. Because at the end of the day, one of the things you got to be careful of if you're having people playing a Vermo or just a video game is if the show's just about them playing the video game, then the stakes aren't that real. And when you have something like Sword Art Online and it's the second half of the first season where it's just like, okay, it's understandable that something important is there, but it's not understandable how the desperation needs to be there, because the desperation seems to be more of an after effect of the way it performed in the first half where people would actually die. But this time it's not immediately obvious that somebody dying in this world at that point is so big of a deal other than lost time. And I don't know, there's things about that don't work. And this one, that's why I've been kind of iffy on Shangri-La Frontier, because it's like, it hasn't given us anything. As far as we can tell, it's just a guy playing a game, and so it's just trying to be kind of awesome about it, but to me, it just makes the things that happen in it feel a lot more fake, I guess. And Vermo Life was a little bit better in that at least it wasn't trying to say awesome. It's like, here's an interesting idea he came up with. Maybe somebody else in the real world came up with it. Maybe somebody else in the game would have come up with it. But at least it's trying to do something like that. And he's interacted with other real characters, whereas Shangri-La Frontier, that's barely happened and had barely any result. But it's also, Vermo Life has also established that the NPCs are probably more of an AI, and we don't know the complete implications of that, but it does kind of mean that, if our main character develops a relationship with an AI, what does that mean? And I don't mean like necessarily a romantic relationship, just it could even be a friendship relationship. What's the implication of that? That's definitely a very interesting, curious thing. But it didn't really explore that at the end of this series. So, hard to say. Forbidden Deductions, I did not watch the latest episode. And then we had Dead Mount Death Play, episode 23, with kind of the mix of stuff where it's just like good, interesting, thought-provoking, series-relevant stuff is happening in this episode. But it did have a couple parts where it's just like, it just flashed over to Phantom Solitaire for no fucking reason. And I can't help but think that the people who wrote the show just like Phantom Solitaire too much. And, he wouldn't be a bad character if this was a show about Phantom Solitaire, but as far as I'm concerned, this is about Corpse God. So when it keeps going over that, it just feels like it's fucking distracting. You have other stuff that's kind of related to the final setup, but so far, the final thing has absolutely nothing to do with all those things other than just kind of tangential, but it's only like, oh, this is only related to that, or oh, this is only related to that, but not really to our main character and the people he's having a conflict with, which only got introduced very recently. And it's just like, I like what it has and some of the pieces it's playing with, but I feel like, again, and I've said this before, I feel like the person making it thinks they're writing something smarter than they actually are. And that's an opinion, and definitely not a fact. And other people, I think, feel differently. I haven't heard anybody really complain to me about it, but I don't know. It's definitely been a bit of an annoyance. But that's the list of anime. What else to talk about? So I guess there's Pokemon and Dead by Daylight stuff to talk about. Okay, so Dead by Daylight first. Their winter event is officially launched. I have to say, I'm highly appreciating it because it feels like a killer really can just choose to do something very different. Like before, it was just like, okay, if it's just the snowmen, then yes, the killer can get in the snowmen too, and there can be funny things with that, and you can give each other high fives. But this time they have full-blown snowball fights. And you know what? There's something to be said about, just chillax and then saying, I only needed to hook one survivor. I've hooked one survivor. It's time to start throwing snowballs. And I feel like, while maybe I haven't been up against as many new people as before, like I can tend to get that a whole lot. It feels like there's been a lot more people that pick up on that and just join in, and people can be like, yep, we can all have fun. And that can be despite the fact that I begin, maybe not exactly sweaty, but definitely playing more seriously. Like I need to get 2 cages Pyramid Head. That can be pretty tricky, and so you kind of need to play very aggressively to have a chance to start that. But, once I got my 2 cages, it was just like, no. Well, I would hook the other people I haven't caged. It's kind of nice to hook everybody. But, I don't know, people start throwing snowballs. I'm like, yeah, sure, fine. I'm fine with that. I had a Freddy daily. I just needed to chase survivors for 120 seconds. So, it's like, yeah, well, let's chase them all throwing snowballs. And if there's anything about that doesn't quite work, it's that I needed only 9 more seconds after that. That wasn't a problem. Basically, I feel like the event gives you way more of an excuse than any other event in Dead by Daylight to chillax and not worry about it too much. Which I usually kind of do anyways, but, now the survivors can pick up on that a lot easier. That's pretty great. And then for Pokemon, the new DLC came out, and I can't really say much about the story. I'm liking just kind of the general setup of things, but unlike the previous one where I progress through the story to go to areas before I start catching stuff, this time I'm just like, fuck it. I'm going through the whole terrarium and catching everything I want to, because I really like catching Pokemon, and I really like building Pokemon for raid stuff. And I guess we've got an upcoming Mightiest Mark Iron Bundle coming up, and I might have an interesting 2 party strategy I'm going to give a shot. I don't know that it's going to necessarily work as well, but my thoughts are that Galarian Slowking, I've always been eyeing the Galarian Slow line because, you know, pretty much you should consider anything that learns Acid Spray. Now, looking closer at Galarian Slowbro, I'm not sure that one's as good because the defensive stats are not quite as much there as the normal Slowbro. But Galarian Slowking looks like it's just as invested in being a special defender. And to me, that means that, you know, you can probably go with normal Slowbro for a physical defensive Pokemon that will stat up and then hit them with a stored power or something like that. But when it comes to a special defensive one, maybe that Galarian Slowking is the way to go, and the versatility is quite a bit nicer because, you know, you've got Amnesia, so just like Slowbro could learn Iron Defense to really up that physical defense, you can use Amnesia to raise that special defense to get that same thing. You do, of course, have Slack Off in order to recover your HP, so you've got good HP recovery. And what Galarian Slowking can do that's different is Acid Spray to lower the opponent's defense, or special defense, sharply. And the interesting thing I'm thinking of here is stored power is really great, but, you know, you really want your stat upper. And so the Slowbro strategy was Iron Defense plus Nasty Plot. And then once you have both of those maxed out, you can just start nuking. Maybe you'd want to do a little bit more, but, you know, that was the basic idea. With Galarian Slowking, you could probably do something similar. It might have Nasty Plot. Well, actually, I guess if Slowbro had it, Slowking probably does. And I guess it doesn't stack as much. But I kind of get a feeling that on its own, it's already kind of better to have this mix of statting upping plus that. Well, no, I guess if you stat up with Nasty Plot, that also increases your special attack and increases the power of the move. So that's still good. But the thing I want to play around with is Alcremie and its Decorate, which seems like it is custom designed to be helpful for somebody that's going to spam a stored power. So my thought is, if I pair the two of them together, because I have two games, right? Then, you know, my Slowking can Amnesia to increase its special defense, and then Acid Spray to lower its offense, and then spread out through that, the Alcremie could decorate it 3 times, and then it has the potential to one-hit KO Pokemon, basically. Or, at the same time I'm doing Amnesia, the other one could be doing Decorate. And so, you know, I think it's got some good support Pokemon potential. The nice thing about the two of them together is they're also both especially defensive oriented. So, I'm going to give that a shot against the Iron Bundle. I think I might keep my eye out for anybody mentioning any other things they might try to do. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking of trying. And yeah, the return of those guys, yeah, that one's not as... So it's more about the next 7-star. And I kind of suspect this strategy is not going to work. Maybe it'll be something like Iron Bundle just hits too hard, or it has something that can hit either or both these. Like maybe it has Flash Cannon, so the Alcremie just can't help. That would be fine. I'll figure it out. Could mean that Galarian Slowking might be at risk of having a 4-move slot syndrome, where it would be nice if it had 5 moves, but I suppose I can always, you know, supplement that with something else. Like, I could always have leave Slack off and just use Blissey, if, because I'm pretty sure it's gonna be only special attacks coming from this Iron Bundle. Blissey's gonna hit them like mucking fad. And, yeah, I guess I have a shiny Chansey, so I could try to make a shiny Blissey. But that's lower priority than making the other two, I think. Might want a shiny Slowpoke to make this Galarian Slowking, though, so I'll think of that. So, fun stuff. But otherwise, I've not progressed at all through the story. I've instead deliberately just explored the entirety of the terrarium. So I might end up rushing through the story once I get around to that. Especially since at this point, I'd say I should probably get my Scarlet game up to speed so it can travel there. And because I think between the two of the games together, I kind of will want to be looking at all the raid points to look for things that you can't find in the wild and you have to evolve them, but evolving them involves special items. So things like that I especially don't want to. Also, Scarlet version unique stuff like the Rampardos line. I think there was something else too, but I'll figure that out once I get there. So, yeah, Pokemon. It's nice. It's nice that I have the time to figure it out. I just need to give myself the time and not, I guess I'm distracted by anime, but Pokemon just has more appeal to it. So, there we go. That's the entirety of my video, I suppose. Y'all, next week is Christmas. So, I do plan on Christmas Day I would normally record it. Well, I'll probably be home in time to still record it. So, I'm probably still going to upload a video next Tuesday. But y'all, have a Merry Christmas.